traders on the internet. Madaz, come on up.
Who's got some sure hands? Who's got some sure hands? Catch this shirt.
All right.
Oh. You gotta give me one of those bazookas, man.
Oh, I know. Well, next one when it's bigger. So, a quick reason why is Max here? And for those of you who are on the internet's a great tool for social networking, for meeting other people who know how to do it. I kind of got just randomly because I'm in the stock market and I follow traders on Twitter. I follow guys who I thought were good, and I saw this one guy who reminded me a little bit of me, except he's way better than I was. I can guarantee you that. But back a long time ago, I started, when I was kind of trying to make a name for myself, I started posting my profit and loss on the internet, on forums, so people could see, hey, here's what I did, this is the software, what it looks like. In other words, so instead of like talking BS, I wanted to show people what was really happening, so I started doing that in 2006, 7, and it's still one of the biggest threads on this forum. And on the internet, I saw Max doing the same thing, and I was like, look at this guy. He's doing stuff that I used to do, pulling up incredible numbers, and I was like, I want to follow him. I started following him, and we kind of started corresponding, and then I was saying, hey, check out our software, and lo and behold, we started building a relationship. Max also is, of course, an affiliate partner of ours, but I wanted to bring him out here so he can kind of take you through. By the way, I'm pretty sure this is another example of what you would probably not be able to do by yourself. But this is, from the sports point of view, I don't know if you guys ever listen to coaches on football. They say you can't teach fast. If you guys ever heard that? That means some things you're born with, and you got to play to that. That's also very important in trading. Know what it is that you actually are good at. Are you a feel guy? Are you a numbers guy? Do you have the temperament to trade the way Kunal does, or is it better to go the way Brian does or the way JC does? So I wanted to show you a person who's does it like in this way that's so easy to follow, so like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just a do it, a killing it, and shows people an example. So Max, introduce yourself. Tell everyone, how did you like kind of get into the game? What happened?
Oh, geez. So randomly, I was working as an engineer. I studied engineering from UC Irvine and worked as an engineer for a couple years. And one day, one of my coworkers showed up in a Lotus Elise.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know how much this guy's making, and he definitely did not have the money for that. And I was like, is this guy like doing something shady on the side, or what's going on?
Drugs.
Yeah, like drugs. He like connections with a mob. What's going on here? But basically, what he did was he bought BP stock at the lows when they had that oil spill. So.
And was making money.
He was making money, and obviously, when you're new, you just see money, and you're like, oh, well, he must have known something. He must have knew what he was doing to make that kind of money. And so he bought that car with that money, and I was like, hey, I want to get in on this, right?
So how did you go through, I mean, because the reason I wanted Max to tell his story is because Max kind of went through, like he said, every single learning curve that you could possibly ever go through, but he's very high aptitude, so he kind of probably did it in a slightly shorter way, but not specifically shorter because, well, Max, how long have you been doing it now?
7.5 years.
7.5 years. Something I wanted to bring up about this, and I was joking around with some of my other friends, but people have strange things about trading that they apply to, again, really like this mindset of making money easy and and hey, I'm just going to kill it. But the funny thing is, when we grow up, go to school, go to college, we at least sort of commit to a 4-year education, right, to learn something in college that maybe you can then go interview for, get a job, and produce some income. But in trading, it's like you take a class for 3 weeks, you're like, all right, I'm a genius, I'm rocking it, I want to make a career. So I want to make sure you guys know that Max, for example, from the get-go to where he is now, it's again reiterating what Kunal was saying, what JC was saying, putting in the work, which kind of, so the next thing, how did you go from like, this guy bought BP to, oh, I can trade? Because that's still a big leap.
Well, after a certain point, I quickly realized he didn't know what he was doing when we were trying to trade together. I was like, hey, I'm trying to get on this stock. It was actually Dang, D-A-N-G,
Yeah.
the Chinese e-commerce company. And I couldn't get executed. And I was like, man, what's going on here, man, And he told me, well, just keep refreshing that, page on E-Trade. I'm like, wait a minute, and I looked at the little, size 6 font. It says, quotes are delayed 15 minutes. So I was like, that explains a lot.
And you're, by the way, in a live account.
I am on a live account, yeah. This is
You
not
don't need
paper.
market data. Call a guy. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, after a certain point, this guy doesn't know what he was talking about. And I slowly just did my own research and found out about level 1 live quotes. Like, there's...
Oh, it happens in real time.
Oh, okay. And then, eventually just one thing after another. And so, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to guide me, which is, I mean, if you're new to trading or you want to get good at it, absolutely, if you have the availability of somebody helping you, please take advantage of that.
And by the way, just so you know, Max on Twitter, you kind of mentor people to an extent. So he's a resource too. He's one of our affiliates. So like Kunal, Max is also somebody you can follow who can help you. But he did it on his own.
Yeah, so I mean, just understanding how critical it is to just get somebody to get you started, and just coming from somebody that just basically had to start from nothing. It's very difficult. There's a very large learning curve when it comes to trading. It's a lot more of a learning curve than I would say, anything really. And I mean, just getting over that hump. I mean, you talk about time, right? And with trading, you literally could just put in a ton of time and actually go nowhere. Like your total displacement could be 0.
It's counterintuitive.
Exactly. So you have to not only put in the screen time, the total time, but the time in the relevant areas for your development as a trader. So for me, I just finding out my niche very quickly and just working on that. Like you said, work to your strengths, right? Yeah. So that's what I did.
Max, let me ask you something, because one of the reasons why Max is here is that I kind of saw from his Twitter profile, that's the beautiful thing about the internet. You can follow somebody, and then you can go back in time and see what they were doing. And what really inspired me to bring Max out here is that Max wasn't afraid to show his losses. See, everyone wins and scores. Oh, $500 a year, something, I'm killing it. But Max really went out of his way to not only put his loss out, but talk about the psychological aspect of it. So that's one of the reasons why he's here. And by the way, Max trades with Centerpoint Securities, one of our sponsors here, which we're grateful for. Very good direct access software at that table over there. And probably one of their bigger traders now, so starting from nothing, going to a big contributor to a brokerage. And so my thought process here is, as you're seeing what it really takes, talk to me about the experience you had, because again, everyone has it. How did you, number one, what happened when you got in, all of a sudden your first, I lost a lot, and then like, ooh, how am I gonna resolve this? Because that's the thing where people fail, ultimately it's like, you get into a car accident, well, no more driving.
I mean, everyone's gonna fail. I mean, if you're a trader, you're inevitably gonna lose, and you're probably gonna take a big hit at some point. So it's more so you just gotta fix your mind to like, okay, how can I recover from this, okay? So for me personally, my first big loss is when I traded the Ren IPO, Ren. And at that point in time, I was trading lots of IPOs, and they were all working. They were all going up at the open, like the China IPO hype was crazy. And then eventually I ran into Ren, it was just like, oh, this Chinese Facebook, it's going to be the next hot thing. I went in and it opened at like 20 and it ended up closing at like 16 or something that day. So that was a pretty nasty haircut. So moving forward, I mean, if you want to learn from your mistakes, the only way around it is you got to come up with some data, journal these things and come up with some statistical analysis based off of what's going on, Hey, am I buying too high? And then there has to be a metric to measure that, right? If you're buying within like the top 10% of the range of the stock or the top 5% or wherever it may be, then that may be something that's triggering these bad decisions and inevitably the losses. So for me personally, starting to journal and track these things and just having a metric, that defines everything that you say is no longer like an arbitrary statement, oh, I made a bad decision, or like, it's something that you actually have data.
Well, you can use more of your engineering skills when you have the numerical data, which by the way, so great segue, and this brings me to something important for trade ideas that I really wanted to touch base on because it affects all of our affiliates, Max, all the customers, everybody. He's right. So big fan of golf, play golf. And if you ever watch any tournaments, and again, I talk about professional sports and trading a lot, it's a numbers game. Like for all the golfers, they have all these crazy stats that you could never even imagine. Plus, minus on greens, how you do from the sand, percentage of like in the fairway, how you do if you're not in the fairway. By the way, that stuff is hard to keep.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the problems. How do you keep a journal? You know, in fact, keeping a trading journal the right way is one of the things that you would have to learn how to do. Again, problem. More things to learn how to do. More work that you have to do. Solution. We're like, what if the software that you were using while you were trading or while you were investigating was kind of watching you and journaling what you were doing on it? So whether, again, you're trading, whether you're paper trading, whatever it is that you're doing, the software is working with you as your assistant, keeping those tabs so that when you're done trading, you don't have to then do the calculation work and the manual entry of all the things that you've done. What if your statistics were kind of available to you like they are to Tiger? Because Tiger Woods does not have to go on a computer, plug his data into his stuff after a tournament. He's like, oh, today's numbers were this much better or worse than my averages. That's what we're in essence creating inside of Trade Ideas. Where the stuff that we're talking about in terms of the artificial intelligence and how it's creating that roadmap for you, doing the homework for you, well, it's not a bad student, it's a good student. And as like Max and all of our other mentors and speakers said, there isn't really a genius, tricky way to win. It's a consistent, systematic way. All of them said the same things. Homework, diligence, and obviously the other important things that you have to do. But for us, for our point of view, we were like, okay, we have to answer the questions, how do we make Max better? How do we make Kunal better? Because they already kind of know all this stuff, right? So our thing is, let's incorporate a lot of that workflow into the software. That's kind of the stuff that you guys are going to see in January when we release all of this automation built in, is basically, in essence, a trade journal, which we've already kind of have inside, built in fully into the software that does a lot of this automated homework tracking, note taking, so that we're offloading the manual labor to the tech and letting you use the numbers. So I just want to make sure that you guys all knew that. That's a really big thing, and I'm glad you talked about that as part of the system.
Yes.
So that's very important. Let me ask you this. So one of the things that I love watching when Max is trading is he does this thing that's called a washout trade. And maybe it's something that isn't common. So maybe you could explain to people what that is and how that works and why that works possibly.
Well, I used to, like Kunal said in his presentation, when you chase, you're more often than not going to end up getting stuck in like a fake out or something. And how many of you have tried to buy a breakout and then right after you buy it just slams you back down, right? I mean, I just got sick of that happening to me, and so I started to understand that you need to buy the pullback. Now, a washout is not just any type of pullback; it's actually like a very violent drop. It's almost like a mini flash crash, if you can kind of picture it like that. But the trend, the overall uptrend, is still intact while this washout is happening. So, if the washout went through all the supports and broke everything, and it's just going the other way, like 3, 4, 5 supports, then we're talking about this might be a reversal in the trend, and you might not want to buy that kind of washout. But if it's like a little washout that drops to the first support level in proximity, then more often than not, it's going to give you a very quick bounce, for a nice little trade. So I'm looking for these little discrepancies in my day, and this type of washout trade happens 4, 5, 6, and on a good day, maybe 10, more than 10 times. And I'm just sitting there all day and staring at my screen, and when that thing happens, you better believe I'm on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing that's very critical with this washout trade, and a lot of people, they come to me and be like, yeah, I've been trying to do it and it's not really working, is because you got to be really fast.
You can't teach fast.
Yeah, that's a fact. So, every single time my mom would come to my room and tell me, hey, you got to turn off Counter-Strike or whatever. I'm like, yeah, in your face, Mom. It actually worked out in the long run.
Well, it's an interesting thing, too, because once again, Max, Kunal did it in his presentation. It's like accidentally helping me. But there's an interesting thing about what Max does and why we invited him here. Because, by the way, Max doesn't use our AI. Do you know why? Because he doesn't have to. There's a funny thing about trading. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. He uses our technology, but we're not necessarily pushing anybody one way or the other. We want to help you do what it is that you're doing better. But from that point of view, what Max is talking about right now in terms of gaming is a very interesting thing because, and this is why you're here. As I was looking through his profile and I see like how he does it, basically everything that Max has tried to do, he's kind of tried to do to 11 out of 10. From engineering to guitar to video gaming. It's like really puts in the work for it. Well, that video game gave him the hand dexterity to do some of that washout, probably kind of analogous to a piano player could probably be a little bit better at it than just somebody who's never done it. Because you need to have the keyboard hand-eye coordination to comfortably do some of this stuff. Okay, so I got a question for you. What happens if you've got a lot of the stuff that Max has, the money, the drive, but your hands have arthritis, for example. You're just older, you played football, and you have arthritis in your hands. I mean, should that be a reason why you cannot participate in the stock market because you were a football player in college? Bullshit. So that's where we come in. Our AI is as fast as Max. It will do the things that Max will want to do, and it will automate the process of doing things properly in terms of risk management. The idea is that the reason he can do what he's doing is because when he's singularly focused in that trade, he is executing like a professional musician. If a professional musician plays a bad note, you know what'll happen? You'll hear it. Like, ooh, that didn't sound right. And that's why on all those American Idol and whatever, they make fun of all the bad singers because you're like, ooh, we can hear that. That note, not good. That's the same thing here. The people that have the skill, they do it, and they do it great. But even Max eventually will get to the point where he does not want to press the keyboard as much. That's where our AI is going to come in. And he's going to find himself having fun letting the AI do some of his things now as well. So he's expanding his flow, not minimizing. He's still doing what he's doing, but he just got an assistant that's helping him. That's kind of how we envision it in our picture is Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin fight crime together. Batman's fighting his people, but the Joker's throwing criminals at him, and that's why Robin's on the side. And so for a good trader, the AI can be like your Robin. It's there helping you, assisting you, and doing all the kind of hardcore calculation that would otherwise require all the homework that everyone here's been talking about. Max, let me ask you something. Like, what has trading facilitated for you that, let's say, otherwise that you would never have been doing if you had not accidentally, I'm assuming, kind of gotten into it?
Facilitate in terms of what?
Like lifestyle. Because there's a difference between people, how they live, like the aspect of the freedom that it provides you, the ability to see the money in a different way, I guess, too. Where you can make an income of a month in a day. It has to kind of change your mind.
It does. I mean, it's really sometimes easy to lose sight of the fact that when you were working with a regular job, that you're getting paid an hourly rate. It's nowhere near some of these trading profits that are being thrown out there. It does change your perspective on life. It really does. But for me personally, I mean, in the end, at the end of the day, I'm still like everyone else. I still gotta pay rent. I still gotta pay my bills. So you gotta treat it as such. But at the same time, the freedom that comes with trading and just being able to be mobile and just
do it from anywhere.
Do it from anywhere, travel, go out there, live your life is very alluring. It's something that drives me to want to become a better trader, even better, even more so financially sufficient. The sky's the limit. So
that's a really cool thing. I mean, there is no limit.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. You know when you work for someone and you got your salary and your bonus, well, you know the limit.
Yeah.
But in trading, there is no limit. And that is a kind of a beautiful thing that you get to experience that most people never get to see. And one of the other things is back to the money thing that I really want to tell everybody about. It's something very important for the mental. When you realize that you can make as much money in 10 minutes as somebody makes in a year, it changes your perception of the whole world of money flow. Like you realize, wow, how much power this thing money has over people, and especially in terms of time. So that's one of the other things that we do this for, is because as I've grown up, what I found out the most important thing for me is time. I want to spend time with my family, my wife, my friends. I want to enjoy myself. But when we all work for our money, we ultimately end up spending most of our time, well, working for our money. Like, you love your money more than your kids potentially because you have to spend more time working to make it. Well, we're trying to kind of flip that a little bit, Bill Gates doesn't have that problem. And, we're saying, why can't more regular people allocate their energy in a way where they can let their money do a little bit of more working for them, like the people who have access? So that's what we're about here. We're about flipping the tables. It used to be just the rich that could play and make the killer money, but now we're opening that up to more and more people, spreading the opportunity capacity of the stock market. In the 90s, we saw the first direct access revolution. It was incredible. I was a part of that. That's where I was like a big innovator in that space. But now, as Kunal said, and I'm sure as Max will tell you, the costs of trading are so low. The access capability is so high and information is so good that if you're not doing it, you might have to understand that you don't like money. Now, which is, by the way, okay. But at least say it to yourself, hi, I don't like money. But that's obviously why you're not here. So investing properly, it's a beautiful combination of realizing what you can do in terms of time and money allocation. Max can do something amazing in 10 minutes, and he's freed his time for the rest of the day, which is, again, so hard for people to grasp. And I want all of you to know that, again, when you're here and when you work with us, we're trying to do the same things for you as we have and what Max has, meaning access to this flow of information, this state where you're not a prisoner to chasing the money, but the money is more kind of coming to you. That's the difference, in my opinion, about what trading allows you to do, the kind of lifestyle change that it gives you. Max, what do you? Let me ask you. We haven't touched this topic yet, but I want to bring it up because I think this is very important. What do you think? And again, there's no wrong answer. What do you think really you need to get started? Something we haven't touched. How much money would you tell someone to start with? And obviously, $1 million is good. But realistically speaking, from what your own experience, what you knew you started with, probably not enough to what it is now. What do you think is the real number?
That's a very, very subjective question.
Totally, but that's why we're here.
Yeah, in a perfect world, we just type in the infinite money cheat and we'll all be good to go, right? But I would probably say at least from a day trading standpoint.
Let's just say someone. This is a good question, everyone, because you will all have to face it. Let's say you're thinking about starting to trade actively. I sometimes don't like the term day trader because it has all these implications to it. But let's just say active investor, where you're not worried about, that it's regular income and not capital gains, hypothetically speaking.
Okay.
So what do you need, do you think, to get started to where you can take some losses? What would be your amount that you would say, hey, that's what I think is minimum?
Well, for me personally, I started with 6,000, and definitely that's not enough. I would
don't do what he did.
But
that's good to know.
Yeah, but honestly, I think probably somewhere around 30,000 to 50,000, realistically. If it wasn't for the PDT rule, I would probably say less, but because of that,
that could go away, by the way.
Yeah,
possibly that would be great.
Yeah.
What Max is saying here, number one, again, very important. Most people don't ask the question. We don't hear the answer enough, because it's one of these things that's scary for people, and a lot of people in education don't want to say it because it could scare people, from actually even doing it. But there's no question at all that the financial markets favor the more capitalized. Simple. If you have more, you can lose more, but not in a sense like on one trade. It just means you can take more chances. Like, hey, I lost one. Like it's almost like blackjack. What most people don't realize, when you play, like, let's say at a $10 table, you need about $2,000. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Because you didn't do the homework with the math and the da-da-da-da-da. But in reality, if you want to really kind of get the proper blackjack odds at a $10 table, you need to have $2,000 in your pocket, because the way to play, the right way, is to really never take money off the table. You got to find that right window where you're just going to be winning, 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 winning.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's the right way. No one does it, but that's the right way to play.
Yeah. This
is the same in the sense that if you have 6,000, well, then your window to lose, and you're going to lose, is just so small. 99% of people will lose.
Exactly. You're better off just keeping the 6,000.
Yeah. He's a 1%er, which is why he's here telling you this. I mean, that's the reason why I want, because you did it all, and you did it the hard way. And I just want to say, like, that's not easy. We're trying to avoid people making the mistakes.
Exactly.
When I first started trading, I started with $40,000, and back then it was, well, still here, it's 4-to-1 buying power during the day. So, 40,000 times 4, 160 grand during the day. And that was enough to buy the 1,000 shares of Intel or Microsoft, which is how we were trading back then, for 8 1/4. Right. Today, I would definitely agree that, the more that you can start with, the better. And the notions of trying to build a $6,000 account into hundreds of thousands, the way Max did, are not realistic.
No.
Because again, it's like because you're competing against him. Even though we're all buddies here, when the market comes into play, everyone's a competitor. We're competing for fills, and there's no love. So, again, I want to make sure you guys know the market favors the better capitalized. The better that you can start, the more that you can start with, the higher likeliness that you will succeed simply by virtue of that fact.
Yeah, because you have more margin for error.
You have more margin for error.
You can stomach the variances of the swings and everything. Yeah.
That's right. So, again, I want to say that Max is always on the internet, at Madaz, on Twitter, one of my key follows, always saying the truth, and really just kind of, you're just flowing during the day,
I got to put those fast fingers to work.
Yeah, I mean.
Keeps me sharp.
If you really want to, whereas I'm in the software business now, I don't trade as much as I used to, and that's why I don't, I do, but not as much as I used to. And I know Kunal, the same thing, he's an educator too. You can't be a one-legged, well, you can be a one-legged ass kicker, but it's not going to be a good thing for you. Or try not to be one. So the whole point here is we wanted to make it easy for you to succeed, and Max is a great resource to follow. So on Twitter, go check him out at Madaz, and behind madazmoney.com, that's the blog, the website.
Yep.
Yeah, so we really encourage you to take a look at what Max is doing during the day. Incredible high-level performer, and always telling the truth. So at the very least, you will see how it's done by a professional, and also the black and the white. No grays. No grays. So Max, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Let me. Does anybody have a question? Actually,
Max is somebody who really, if you guys have questions, great resource to ask. Feel free.
Awkward pause. Awkward pause.
Great. All right, Max, just a quick one. Do you trade all of the day, or do you have also preferred times?
Yeah, just going off what Kunal said, I do believe in the fact that there's a lot more edge in certain parts of the days versus others. A huge part of my strategy deals with volume, liquidity, and volatility. And I'm a bigger proponent of trading when there's more range, more volatility, and more volume. So therefore, I put a lot more weight and emphasis during the day. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the 80-20 rule. I'm a big proponent of the fact that I think that 80% of my money is made in the first 20% of the day. And I think my statistics prove that. So for the most part, I just trade the morning. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys probably know about the trader nap.
Trader nap. I was in this hashtag. He says that all. He's sleeping at 9. I'm like on my third coffee. He's like trader nap. I'm like, damn. I just did the serum. Didn't we just get up?
Dad, I've been up since 5.
I know.
You know, yeah. So I mean, I mean, it was a start as a joke, but it's actually a very real thing because during that time of the day, that's when I feel like there's no more edge. And I didn't get to touch up on this during the talk, but I believe in taking preventive measures as opposed to, you know, you're in a shitty situation.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for example, you're playing poker, you're at the table, and you're like, by the time the flop comes out, and you're like, shit, I got a shitty hand. You're like, I'll see what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
the turn comes, like, well, I'm already committed.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck.
All in.
Right? Yeah, now you're stuck, right? Now you're stuck with nothing.
Did you watch me play?
So, like, the trader nap is basically my way of just taking preventive measures. And, like, you know, if I'm not going to put myself in a shitty trade to begin with, you know, if I'm fast asleep, you know, then nothing's going to happen.
Well, it's a mnemonic too. It's almost like your own keyword for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like activate, risk, control.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, and
It's a safe word. It's a safe word.
Correct.
safe word,
Yeah.
trader. And it's interesting because I'm, you know, by the way, before I got banned on Twitter, I was following Max very closely, and the trader naps come at just like interesting times. What I've noticed because I'm in my stuff and I'm doing, I'm like, oh, there's Max. He's like, is already slowed down because. What I like about it is because since I've been trading a long time, I kind of like sort of go into a state. I'm like, oh, so already, you know, I'm like, oh, 8:15 already. All right.
Yeah.
So like I can borrow his statements because it gives me like, okay, so I already know what's happening. And when I'm out there looking at stuff, I'm sort of cheating like I did in high school off of our CTO. So everything's good.
So one more question, if
There's more.
you got one? Yeah, please.
So Max, do you have a daily profit target that after the certain amount of percentage or dollar-wise, then you stop trading?
That was my question.
Because statistically, each trade is, you know, probability is different, each trade from the other one. But I see a lot of people, after a good morning session, then they keep trading and they give all of that back.
Plus, that follows up on Kunal's presentation, which I caught on, which was he has like a daily loss budget. So,
Yeah, both loss and profit. I'm particularly interested about profit target. You know, after 2 minutes, you make a good trade, you make it 2% on your account. Do you stop trading or you keep trading for another hour?
Okay, so I believe that if there's still opportunity, you should still take advantage of said opportunities. However, from a statistical standpoint, if you have like, you know, a bunch of years and years worth of journal and data and, you know, and you can kind of tell like, okay, like on a day like this where there's X amount of opportunities, I averaged, you know, X amount of money, then yeah, it's realistic to think that, okay, I'm around that level, maybe I should take it easy a little bit, you know, but I would never just stop because you never know when the next big opportunity is going to come and you just don't want to shut the door on that, you know, just in case something like that happens. But however, you should be mindful that statistics are there for a reason, right? So if I feel like I'm at that point, then I should be cautious and just be like, okay, I'm just going to take the trades that are the best setups, you know, the A+ setups, the golden setups. And anything below that, I'll either, you know, skip it or just like do like a very small position or something like that. So that's how I manage it, you know. That's how I don't overextend myself. And on top of the trader nap kind of thing where like, okay, I know that statistically speaking, after the clock turns from 10:59 to 11, my edge goes down substantially, then what's the point of even being here? I'm just going to go sleep in my bed.
Let me add something. Hold on one second, Dave.
fire questions.
One second. I want to add something because it's very important. It's a very good question, and it's critical because there's really a right answer to that question, and the answer I want to say is it's not goal. It's not a money goal, and I want to explain why. It's the difference between a goal approach to success versus a system approach to success. We believe it's a systems approach that gives you success, not goal. Let me explain why. You make the first trade, you love it, you make $1,000, whatever number like kind of makes you feel good. Well, if you're goal approached, you're like, okay, well, one thing you can say is I'm done. Well, if that's what happened. But let's say it's close. You're not done, but it's close. When you're close to being done, you're like, man, you put in, I'm close to being done. I'm 90% of my goal. Next trade comes in. What you don't know is the next trade could be 10x that. But if you've mentally kind of put yourself into that first trade still, you're still stuck there. You have to, going back to what the analogy I said, good poker, not only poker players, but chess players, a guy like Bobby Fischer or any great chess player can go in New York and play 40 games at a time. He walks up, move, 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 because each game to him, he's like, he puts it away. Once he makes the move, it's over. Move, over. If you do a systems-based approach, meaning I just take the trades that come in based on the system that I've made, whatever that is, whether it's the morning, trader nap, that's all part of his system. But when you say, hey, I want to make $1,000 a day, well, then that's kind of arbitrary, and you say, why not 10,000, or why not, there's no right number is the point.
Let's go, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, Max, Dave here. How many pre-market trades? I mean, is that something that you normally get into? Do you do a lot of pre-market trading? I mean, you said you start about 5 o'clock in the morning, but is
Yeah.
it something that you're pretty active doing a lot of pre-market trades, or is it more
No,
like right when the
I actually don't do any pre-market trading at all. The last time I took a pre-market trade, I got ripped pretty hard, so I'm like, forget it. Because there's just too many things that can happen. The liquidity's too low. I mean, it's volatile, dangerously combined with low liquidity,
The worst of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember that stock GBR.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I mean, it was at like 9, and I shorted like literally only a couple hundred shares, and it went to like 13.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, like the one time I decided to take a pre-market trade, this happened. I'm never doing it again. So yeah, there's just too many things that can happen. Like also, statistically speaking, a lot of halts, dries, T12 halt in pre-market. So
I want to add to that too, in that I kind of believe that the pre-market trading and post-market trading is total bullshit, and for the exact reasons that he said. But it's also, there's kind of two levels of BS here. Number one, markets open, markets closed. But not for some people. What does that mean? Well, if you're really rich and you have access to Instinet, and you can call your, well, yeah, markets open all the time. What? That's not fair. Why is it that when a stock closes at this price, it opens up 5 points later because Bob and Harry, have the connections and they can put in their trades and get in, and I did. That's all going to go away soon. I mean, that's been BS that's been around forever, but it's changing in the same way, I believe. I mean,
Yeah.
can't tell everything, but I believe it's changing in the same way that the blockchain kind of made some things pretty cool in that 24-hour, 365. You can buy and sell Bitcoin all the time. The supply and demand is real. Stocks are going to go the same way. Okay? There's going to be no gap up because you'll be able to trade them every time because there'll just be liquid counterparties to trade against, not fake market makers trying to make spreads and all that stuff. Real supply and demand. That, again, it's not there yet, but it can happen, but that's the reason why I don't do any pre-market. Again, he said it. There's no liquidity. And even if you got in, well, you can't get out.
exactly.
Congratulations. You're in. Okay, call your broker now with your fingers on your keyboard. Phone's not picking up.
All right, we'll stop right there. Scott, what do we have? Do we have a break right now?
Okay.
15-minute break.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Max, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Break.
Thank you, Max.